Hi everybody, and welcome back to part 5 of Life is Better in Full Bloom. See, I got it this time. I've been having a hard time saying that title. I don't know what my problem is. So I practiced before I started the video tonight. So we're going to put this together. This is always so exciting to see it all come together. They're not hard to put together, but they just take a little bit of time. They do have you do it in sections. And the one thing I want to remember to do is that they recommend rotating the roses blocks. So we'll remember when we do these roses that they have one of them like the way it is in the hoop, and then they had the other two rotated a little bit so they look slightly different. So we'll have to remember to do that. And then, so last night I thought about it after I got done. I was working on a video last evening, and this is the next day, and like next evening, I should say. And I decided I think I'm going to try a different color scheme. So this is my original borders that I did in the video, and you can see the cute little pattern. It's done in the white, and that's what they kind of said was to do it in, kind of white. And then the smaller, or the flanges, I should say, and these are the borders. And these were done in the matching blue. Well, those look really nice. And I thought, I can just use those. I don't have to sew them again. But I just kept thinking about it overnight. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try sewing them again. So this is, I think, the ones I'm going to use on my pillow. I did the yellow flanges in that light blue. And you can see all that. This is such a cute quilting design. And I just thought it was so cute. And I really wanted to see it a little bit. So I think it's not like reaching out and grabbing you by the throat. But you can see it. And I'm going to use these. I think I did these with blue thread, my light blue. And then I thought, well, maybe I should redo, these would have been just fine with the green, with the blue, the little leaves. And I thought the little leaves are kind of cute. And I kept thinking about the leaves and thinking, the leaves really should be green. So I took that real, pretty green, it's called fresh green, and did them in green on the blue. And it doesn't look, but it looks like leaves then. So I think I'm going to use these two in the pillow that I put together. So we're going to use the new ones I did. And I think the ones I did in the video were absolutely fine. But sometimes I just second guess my fabric or my thread choices. It's usually my fabric is usually okay, but I second guessed my thread choices, and I kind of did what they told me, and I just am going to go with these other ones with the other colors. So we're going to use the ones with the blue on the yellow flanges and the green on the blue borders. Okay, so I'll keep these. I might make another pillow, and I could always put these together. So I'm just going to set these aside. So those are what I worked on today to get ready for the video. So because I decided I'm just going to try another color scheme and see if I like it. There's a lot of the pretty green and blues in the whole pillow, and I thought that would just tie it all together. So anyway, so I did change my mind. I warned you that it was possible. So, okay. So we also need then we need all of our blocks. I've got all of the blocks over here. We need our filler blocks. And then we're also going to need the backing. So this is my backing. And these backing pieces were, let me find the measurement. I don't remember. They were 13.5 by 22.5. So it's likely I will have to maybe trim these down just a little bit. And then you're going to take one of the long sides on each panel, and you're going to turn it back 1/4 inch and another 1/4 inch and just hem it. And I've already done that on these, so you didn't need to see me hem. So I just hemmed one of each of my pieces. Now, if you have like directional fabric, make sure that you lay them down so you know which sides to hem. This is not directional, so we're good with this one. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside. So those are our backs. We got our borders and flanges, and then we have all of our blocks. I am going to sew this together with a 1/4 inch seam. And I am going to sew these together using, I've got cotton, Pima cotton thread in my needle and bobbin. I think I'm just going to use white because many of the black, or the backgrounds, I should say, of the blocks are white. So let's just start sewing. So the one thing that we are going to have to watch are those rose blocks, because they tell us to turn them so that they have some interest. So I'll just have to watch that I'm doing that. So this is on page, the two sections in the assembly instructions are on page 34. So we're going to assemble our pillow, and we're going to put the borders and flanges on, and then we also need to do a little bit of embellishment. So our little leaves are going to go on our roses. I think that's the only embellishments we have to put on. Everything else was sewn embellishments this time. So we don't have as many things to put on at the end. Okay. So we're going to start out with doing section 1 up here, and it's going to start with the watering can and the first filler block. So the watering can is this block, and the filler block, we need that longer one. So it was the kind of pink one that's going to go on here. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to need 2 flowers. And the flower, the way you can kind of tell which way the flowers go, I don't know if you can see it real well on the camera, but the little pointy point, this is the way it was in the hoop originally. So this little pointy point on the first flower is going to the left. But then on the yellow one, I'm going to look at real close with my glasses on. It's going to the right. So they turned it. So that little pointy thing in the middle was going the other direction. So this one's going to go this way, and this one's going to go this way. So these two are going to go like this. Okay, so I put the little pointy point, and you can kind of tell too that this is that long piece that goes up along here, that you can kind of look at the background too and tell that you've got it in there right. And then this piece here. So that these are going to go like this together. Okay. So that's the second little row. So we'll kind of put those together here. And then we'll do the other rows in the next section. And then the next little row we have to do here is our Dresden flower. So we have this one, and the mushrooms, and the kind of greenish filler block. So I got to find that one. Here it is. So here's my kind of minty green filler block. Okay. So these will be together and in the third section of this first piece that we're going to do. Okay. So I like to sew with, instead of a 1/4 inch piecing foot, and of course you can do that, I like to sew with my piecing stitch on my machine, and I like to use the J foot. It just seems to go up over the bumps a little bit better. They're longer feet, so I usually use my piecing foot or my piecing stitch with my J foot. So we're going to go to my Q tab on my machine, which is right here, and my piecing stitch is Q02. So we're going to do that. The one thing I do is I like to make the length of the stitch a little longer, because it has a tendency to be, it's set up normally at 2.0, which is very small, and I make a lot of mistakes, so I often have to rip. So that's a really, really hard stitch to rip. So I usually put it at 2.5. Okay. So we're going to sew with that. This will be a 1/4 inch seam. So with this Q02, I don't know if you can see, but the needle kind of moves over towards the right, and then you lay your fabric, the edges of your fabric right along the edge of the foot, and that's a 1/4 inch. So the one thing I wanted to tell everybody is, if you happen to cut, see, my borders, like we did them yesterday in the second or the fourth video, I should say. I did mine all in, the full strip of the fabric. So if you happen to cut them to the sizes they said in the instructions, when you're putting your quilt or your pillow together, if you're worried about your borders and flanges being the right size, and it can be a bit of a problem, make sure when you're sewing your blocks together that you are taking a full 1/4 inch seam. It won't make the pillow too small, but it will make it smaller so that those borders and flanges will fit if you have already cut them to the sizes they stated in the instructions. That's why I always leave mine like this, because then I can just measure them so that I know they're the right length. Okay. So I'll show you that method as I'm going, because I'm going to sew them together that way. But I will take a full 1/4 inch seam. And what I mean by that, so let's get our first 2 blocks here. Let's grab these two. And I'm going to sew this block to this block. So when I put these together, and I am going to grab a couple pins here. When I do, what I want to do is I want to put the fabric right up against the edge of the foot. I'm not going to tuck it under the foot. So often when we've done some piecing, I just tuck my fabric under the foot, on the edge of the foot, so that it is kind of a scant 1/4 inch. Now this, I want to make it be a full 1/4 inch, so I don't have problems with my borders and flanges being, I'm cutting mine so it's not a problem, but this is the way, if you cut yours already to the size they stated, that you can get around the fact that maybe your borders and flanges are a little bit small. Okay, so we're going to put this in. I'm going to go ahead and, get started here. I'm going to put this so that I can just, so this is going to come just to the edge of my foot because I'm using Q02 for my piecing. I am going to tie off, and I'm going to do my 1/4 inch seam. Now we're going to do all 3 of these sections, these little sections that go in section 1. And then I'm going to go press, because I need to press my seams open. I like to press the seams open because the pillow just seems flatter that way when I'm working on it. Ouch, I just stabbed myself, sorry. I jumped. These pins are very sharp. I love these pins, but they are very sharp. So hopefully I won't bleed on my pillow tonight. They are very sharp on the end. It's just like a lancet. Okay, so there's our first 2 pieces together, and these need to be pressed before we put them together with the other ones. So I'm going to lay these aside for a second, and then let's go on down to our flowers here. Okay, and we want to make sure that we have them in the right orientation. So this one is going to have the little skinny one here, and this one has the little skinny one going this way. Okay, so we're going to put them together like this. This is what the picture looks like. So I think we're okay. We're going to lay these together like this, right sides together, and then I'm going to pin these. So hopefully I won't stab myself again. So if I jump again, I did. These are really sharp pins. I love, these are magic pins, and these are extra fine patchwork pins. And then these are the new ones I just found that I really love, that are flathead. And so they're so much easier to grab when you're trying to pull them out, because you can just kind of reach in and pull them out. So, and I love the other ones too. I have them both up on the ShieldSewingCenter.com website. So I'm out of the regular ones right now. I have the flathead ones in stock. So we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam. Okay. Make sure I get those even there. I'm a little off here. There we go. I'm going to tie off on the other end. Sorry, I keep bumping my camera. When I'm sewing, it's hard for me. The camera is like between me and the trying to get it a little bit lower so I can get my arm over it. I have to put my arm, over it. All right, we'll cut that, and then we're going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to take these over to the iron in a minute, and then we will press these open. So you want to open your seams flat. Everything seems to lay so much flatter if I do that instead of leaving them to one side, because these are kind of bulky. Okay, so then the last section is the Dresden, but then these 2 little blocks here, the mushrooms and the little filler block, have to be sewn together first before I can sew them to this. So we're going to sew those 2 together first. So I'm going to sew, and I think I want, so it's going to go like this. I think I want my watering can pointing up, so I think we'll do that. So we'll put this on the bottom of the little mushrooms. So when you do these, just kind of, look at your, I have a tendency to look at the pictures and just, they go together pretty quickly in sections. And then you put the sections together, and then we'll put the borders and flanges on. So it won't take long to put this together. Okay. Get this out of my way. All right, so off we go. And then I'm going to press this open before I sew my Dresden to this unit. So I'm going to do that quickly first, and then we'll come back and sew everything else together. So I'm going to pause for just a moment while I go and do a little bit of pressing. And then I will come back and we will sew the Dresden onto this. And then the other ones we will sew on the top of these two pieces here. Okay, so I got the filler block attached to my mushrooms, and then I got to take my Dresden now and put that on over here. So we'll put these right sides together. And I pressed my seam open right here. But I really noticed that these lay so much flatter if you press your seams open. I know that's not the way, you know, most quilters think they need to do that, but it really works better because these are quite bulky, and I've always pressed these open because I like my tops and my pillow tops to be very flat. All right, so we're going to do that, and then this one will be also 1/4 of an inch. So we're doing all 1/4 inch seams here. Tie it off a little bit. When I tie off, I'm pressing my polka dot button right here instead of the reverse. So if you, I don't like to back up because sometimes it gets veers off a little. So then my 1/4 inch seam is sometimes a little off. So I like to use this because it just ties a knot in place. Most of the machines have that now. Most of the Brother and Baby Lock machines have that button. It's not on all some of the older ones, but it is on most of the new ones. All right, so we're doing this at 1/4 of an inch. Make sure I'm even here. All right, and then I'm going to press all the seams open so we can put these sections together then for this first section. All right, so these little units, there we go. So I'll press these all open, all my seams open for these and this one, and then we'll sew these 3 rows together. Okay, and just a reminder to be a little careful while you're pressing, you know, with the heated iron. You do have some things on here like this embroidery leather and stuff that you don't want to get it like overly hot. So I am pressing, of course, from the back, and that helps a lot. But if you need to press on the front, you might need to use a pressing cloth to cover up some of these specialty things. Most of this one didn't have like a lot of stuff that would be a problem. Some of them, you know, they put like vinyls and different things, and so you have to be a little more careful. But you do want to be careful with this embroidery leather. You don't want to damage it with the iron. Okay, so we're going to put together our 3 rows. So here is this one. So this one's going to go here like this, and I think we can probably sew all of these together and then press for our section. So I'm going to pin it, and I like to pin, let me pull this back just a little bit. I like to pin where my seams are so that those lay nice and flat. I don't like those to like flip over on me because then you get bulk in your seam. So I try to pin on both sides of those. Need another pin here. There we go. Like that. All right. So we're going to sew this. These are the 2 flowers I'm sewing to my watering can and my little filler block here. Second, I'm going to see if I can reposition this camera a little bit more. It's hard for me to sew with the camera. It's not as bad with the embroidery because I don't have to put my arm in here. So I always have a little trouble sewing with the camera in front of me. All right, so we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam. Running that right along the edge of my foot because I've got my piecing stitch on here. And I'm going to kind of pull these out as I get there. Okay, keep them nice and flat. Everything lined up. All right, and then we're going to tie off at the other end. There we go. So there's the first row. So we got the watering can attached to our roses like that. And then see that made with the seam allowance, see how it made the little watering can kind of set like right on the seam basically. And then we're going to put together our little Dresden flower and the mushrooms. So these will go here. Now this one we're also going to have to make sure we line up our seam. So I'm going to kind of make sure I have that seam well lined up because they do meet at a seam in the middle there. So I'm going to make sure I have those lined up nicely and pin there first so that I have that done first. And then we'll pin on the ends. And I like to pin where those seams are to keep them flat. But yeah, this only has just a couple of different, this one's only like two hats, two parts. So it doesn't take long to put this one together. All right, so there's that. And then we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam here. Second, I got to get my threads kind of short here. There we go. Make sure I got this lined up nicely. And then I'm going to press this. And then we'll be done with this section already. My goodness. That didn't take long, did it? Okay, so I'm going to get this out of the way. Oops, a second here. There it goes. Had to assist it a little bit. It was, every now and then it gets stuck. There's a knot back there. You know, on the edge when we do the embroidery, there's always a knot. And sometimes when you start sewing, that you catch that knot and it doesn't like to advance. It catches it on the needle, and you just have to kind of give it a little help. Because it's like, see right here, you can see there's a knot right here too. So that those sometimes catch when you're trying to get started. Make sure you have your automatic height adjustments turned on your machines. And for most of you, you know, if you have an embroidery machine, they have that. And it is in the settings, and it's called Automatic Fabric Sensor System. So make sure that's turned on, because what it does is it really helps with that catching problem, because the machine adjusts the presser foot pressure. And that is like the most awesome thing ever. So make sure you have those turned on your sewing machine. So there we go. So I'm going to go press this open. I'm going to press my seams open so it's nice and flat, and then we're going to go on to section 2 already. Okay, so there's my section 1. It's all sewn together. Doesn't that look cute? And these were rotated, so they look a little different. And then here's my flowers. And then when you're pressing, make sure that you don't press all of your poof out of your out of your little foam here. So just be careful when you're pressing. But that looks really nice. Okay, so there's section 1. Okay, so we're going to set this aside here for a little bit. And then the second section is going to be, well, we're going to sew, let's see. So we have a filler block and the other rose, and then that rose is going to be turned again. So this one is going to go across the whole top. So we'll do some of these little sections first. So we're going to do the filler block. Oh, I'm sorry, Gigi. Sorry, my cat is trying to help me here. All right, so we're going to do this one with the rose. So I'm going to put this so that my watering can is pointing up again. And then this one, and I have to look on my closely at the so the point on this one is going down. That little skinny point is going down. So that's going to be like sewed together there. And then we're going to put the little butterfly with the yellow filler block. So these are going to go together. These two are going to go together. Okay, we'll put those together, and then we're going to put the birdhouse and the pinwheels together like this. All right. Okay. So we got those. So let me see here. Let me get this book out of the way here. So let's sew our birdhouse and our pinwheels together. So we have these two to sew together. The birdhouse is on the left. I'm going to slide this over. Now, the one thing that they did say in the earlier instructions was to take some tape and tape your little caterpillar up so that he's dry now. So it should work. I'm just going to take some tape and tape some of the fringe up so that it won't get caught in my seam. Okay, so I'm just going to take some tape and tape it up so I won't get it in my seam. Whoops. And then I ripped my tape. Look at there. Just trying to get that little piece off there. There we go. Let's keep that from getting stuck in my seam. There we go. And he'll stay out of my seam. I think I'm going to have to, my tape doesn't want to rip very well, so I'm going to, there we go, cut that little tab off. There we go. So he should be okay, at least get through the sewing part. Right, so we're going to lay, this is going to be on the, yeah, this is going to be on the left, and this one's on the right. So we're going to go like this, and then pin these together, and then we're going to do the two smaller pieces. So you have to hop up and down and do a lot of pressing with these. It's very good to do the pressing, you know, from the very beginning. I always press my seams and try to get them as flat as possible, because otherwise they just don't, the pillow lays so much flatter this way. Okay, so we're going to do the 1/4 inch seam again. Tie it off. I always kind of tie these off because they're kind of thick, and so when you go to turn them, you know, press the seams open, sometimes the seam wants to open up if you don't tie it off at the ends. They're just kind of thick, so I usually do. When I'm piecing like little quilt blocks, I don't, but these are just kind of thick. Okay, so I'll do that, and we'll set this aside because we're going to be pressing that seam open before we put it onto the next piece. And then let's see, our butterfly has the yellow one on the bottom of it. So we're going to lay this way. This is my favorite part. It's always so fun to see it put together, because you know they look really cute, the blocks, but then you get them all put together and like, wow. So I'm pretty happy with my colors so far. My fabrics were better than I thought, because you know I was kind of going from with what I had, and I was able to get, I thought, to look pretty nice. It was similar to theirs, but I didn't have all the exact fabrics. All right, so we'll tie up on this end. Okay. Like that. So that's going to be that section, and then this section, we're going to make sure we get our rows going the right way. I'll check it again. So this one is done. Yes. So the point is pointing straight down on this one. I'll look at it closer again. Yep. And then we're going to put the gray, the little gray watering can on the top. And then I want the watering can, you know, pointing up. So I'm going to sew it like this. So I always look forward to putting them together. Sometimes it takes a while. I remember when I was doing when I did the gnome, you know, the Luck of the Gnome one, the Irish one. Oh my gosh, that one took a while to put together because there was lots of blocks. Because it was a bigger pillow, of course, but it had lots of blocks in it. I was really surprised at how long it took me to get that one going. So, all right, so we're going to tie off here. All right. So then I'm going to go, this one's going to go, whoops, like this. Yeah, like this. So I'll go press these open, and then we will put our sections together and then put Life is Better in Full Bloom at the top. Okay, so I've got these all pressed. So now we need to do these two together. So these two are going to be sewn together, and then I'll have to press this before I can do the others. So we'll get these two sewn together first. So it's the butterfly on the right and the little rose and the watering can on the left, or the little filler block, I should say. So we'll put these together first, and then I'll press these, and then we'll be ready to put this section together. So just take your time doing this. The pictures are very good, and then you can just work one section at a time. You know, some of the bigger ones, I remember putting together my first quilt, and it had quite a few sections. So you just kind of took your time and went through the sections, and it went together real easily. So, okay, so here's this one. Get this one done first. I'm going to tie it off. I love the pinwheels. And that little caterpillar, I just got such a giggle out of that cat. Whoops. See, I caught that little knot again. Let me just move forward just a little bit. I caught that little knot again on that corner. There we go. Sometimes they start and stop at the same spot, and there's lots of knots. Like here, you can see it right here. So they have a tendency to start and stop in that same place, and then there's all those knots, and then that's what causes that. So you just kind of move it forward just a smidge. So tie off here. All right. And we're going to make sure I got those all nice and flat. So I'll go press these real quick, and then we'll be ready to put section two together. Okay, so we're ready for the 3 rows of section 2 here. So we're going to put Life is Better in Full Bloom at the top. Yeah, it goes on top of this one. So we're going to put this one on first. Get this section done. I'm trying not to stab myself. I got these, I love sharp pins, and I've had, I've struggled finding pins, and these are the ones that I really, really like. So these are called magic pins. I have them up on shieldsewingcenter.com, and they're extra fine patchwork pins. So they're very sharp, and they are, I think I'm gonna put a pin on both sides of that because I want it to stay flat under there. Do this, make sure I got it right side up. That would be my luck, is I would put it wrong side. I'd put it upside down. Okay, I think we're good. But I've struggled finding pins, and I used to buy pins like glass head pins, which are also usually quite sharp. But whoops, I think I might have unthreaded my machine. Let me see here. And I got these glass head pins, and they worked pretty well, but they always seemed like they were dull. And I bought some of these when at a quilt shop just to try them, because they looked like they were really nice and sharp. And oh my gosh, those glass head pins that I'd gotten were so dull. It was like trying to put a log through my what I was doing. And these are so sharp. So just be careful of your fingers. I managed not to bleed all over my pillow here tonight, so that was good. All right, so I'll get this one done. I'm going to go over this slowly. The other thing about these pins, and I know a lot of you don't like to do this, but you can very, very slowly go over these. These are so, so soft that they won't hurt your machine. I sometimes need to leave them in when I'm doing seams and like junctions, so that things don't scoot. But this one, I can take them out. This is kind of thick, so I try to take them out before I get to them. When I'm piecing, though, I often leave them in and drive over them, but very slowly. They are very thin. I would never do over any other pins besides these. Okay, so we're done with that one. So now we're going to put the pinwheels on the bottom. So this is the top part, and then we're going to put the pinwheels on the bottom like this. We're going to have to get our seam lined up down here. So we'll do that first. We'll get that nice and lined up so it looks good. Pin those. I like to pin those on both sides so that it keeps it straight. And then we'll sew the 2 halves together. I mean, that we're done for the middle. Isn't that awesome? This is going real fast. Okay, get this set aside here. Hopefully I didn't get anything upside down. We'll make sure here before we sew. There we go. That's always my luck. I have had that happen to me multiple times. But I think, oh, you're just great, and then I sew it upside down. So, okay, so we're going to do this one. And then I'll press again. We have to do a lot of pressing during this. Okay, so I'm going to go over these real slowly because I don't want those to open up on me. Okay, get those pulled out. There we go. And then we'll tie off on the other end here. Oops, grab this one. All right, we'll get that one tied off, and now I'm going to press one more time, and then we're going to put the 2 halves together. How exciting. This is going to be so cute. I really like it. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so here's section 2. Isn't that pretty? I'm just so excited to get this put together. All right, so then we're going to put the 2 halves together, and we're going to have to line up some seam lines on this one, so we'll have to make sure we get everything kind of lined up. All right, so we're going to put this one is going to be on the right, and the watering can's on the left. So we're going to flip these like this. But we want to make sure where we have seams to line up here. Let me pull this back a little bit. When we want to line up our seams first so that we have those all beautiful and aligned. So I'm going to put pins on both sides of those. And then I think there's one here too. Yeah, so we'll get this one lined up nice. Okay. And I like to put the pins on both sides, just it helps keep those seams flat so we don't get all that bulk in there. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So I got to get some more pins out of my drawer. And lay these flat here. Oops, here. These are the regular pins. For some of you who haven't seen them, these are the regular ones. They have the rounds. I like both of them. But I just happened to be able to get the flathead pins this last time. And the other ones have been out of stock for a while, so I just got the flatheads, and I thought, oh, maybe I won't like them, but you know, they're great because you can kind of pull, you can just kind of grab them, pull them out like this without having to stop. I kind of like that. So when you're pulling them out as you're sewing. All right, so I'm going to make sure I put some pins here where that other seam is there. And then we're going to go on to the borders already. Wow, this is going together real quick. All right, so I'll get this lined up. Drawer shut so I can get closer. I keep the pins like in the drawer right next to me so that I can just leave them in there, and then because otherwise I have them all over. I'm very, I'm always dropping things like that on the floor, have pins all over. So I leave them in the drawer next to me, and then I can just open the drawer a little bit and grab the pins out. Okay, so we're gonna go over these slowly. And then I'll start pulling them out once I get up there. There we go. These two, I'm going to just kind of go right up to it, and then I'm going to pull them out slowly. Uh-oh, I have an orange helper, so you may see orange feet here. She came to visit. She likes to hang out with me at night. This one done. So now she's going to lay on all my, I've got her mat mostly uncovered now, so she's actually pretty happy. Sometimes if that's not uncovered, boy, she just stomps around until I get it so she can lay on her little wool ironing mat. Okay, so we'll get this one started. And if you notice that my foot goes up and down when I let up on the gas, this is the pivot feature. So a lot of the machines have this feature. There we go. And I really like it when I'm doing this kind of stuff because then you can stop and adjust, and it drops the needle so it holds everything in place for you. And so I'll show you where that is on the machine. It looks like a little foot with a needle through it. So I use my pivot feature a lot. All right, tie that one up. Oh my gosh, now we just have to do one more seam. We'll iron one more seam out, and the whole thing will be together. Look at there. Isn't that neat? I just really like it. So I'll go press the seam open, and it's just going to look so nice. And then we're going to go on to the blue borders. Okay, so here's the whole section. I think you'll be able to see most of it on the camera there, but isn't that pretty? So all of the blocks are together, and then now we're going to be working on the, got this seam a little bit off, but it's not too bad. I was trying to kind of, sometimes if you just press them a little bit more, I might have to press, but they look pretty good. I have a little trouble sometimes with the junctions when I'm opening my seams up, but they look pretty good. So, okay. Sometimes when you're kind of seeing it from below, and I'm looking at it straight on it, it's pretty close. So, all right. So we're going to work on the blue borders next. So this was on page 34 where we were working in the instructions, and we're going to turn it over and we're going to work on page 35. So 35 tells us that we're going to cut a 1.5 by 16.5 inch border. So what I like to do actually is I like to actually measure my finished piece and then cut them to that size. So, but what I like to do, we're going to do them on the vertical edges first, and then we'll do it across the top. So the first one's going to be about 16.5, but I'm going to take my tape measure here and measure to see what my actual measurement is for my piece. And it may be a little smaller than that actually, because I take a full 1/4 inch seam. So we're going to see what this is. We're going to measure from edge to edge. And I like to kind of measure in just a little bit from the edge. So we're going to measure this. So it's 16 and about 3/8, just shy of 16 and a half. So yeah, about 16 and 3/8. So let's measure this way a little bit. I want to try to measure not on that, right on that little mushroom. So 16, yep, 16 and 3/8. So see, I'm just a little teeny tiny bit short. So I'm going to cut mine just a little bit shorter. So 16 and 3/8. I'm going to cut 2 of those. Now, when I'm cutting my borders, it's very important to remember. And it's not as important with the narrow borders because they're smaller, but you want to make sure, what I usually do is I cut one of my 16 and 3/8 inch pieces off of each strip that I did. You know, I have a whole long strip, because when you get to the longer ones, you need to cut, and it's about 18 and a half and then a 22 and a half inch one. And so you need to cut one short one and one long one off of each strip. Otherwise you'll run out. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing with these. I'm going to cut one 16 and 3/8 inch piece off of each one of these, and then I'll cut about an 18 and a half inch one off of each one of these. Okay, so that way I know I'm going to have plenty. Now I will have plenty with this, but the longer ones, you do need to make sure you do that. Cut one shorter one and one longer one off of each of these full strips. Okay, so I'm going to go do my 16. We decided 16 and 3/8, right? So I'm going to go measure. A second here, I got to turn it around again. 16 and 3/8 I think is what we decided. Yep, just shy of 16 and a half, just barely shy of 16 and a half, but 16 and 3/8 should do the trick. And I'll go trim those, and then I'll come back and we will sew those on, the 2 vertical sides. So we're going to do the vertical sides first. Okay, so we're going to pin these on either side, and I think I want my leaves going, I think I want them going upward on both sides. So I don't think it really matters. You could put them any way you want, but I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, I need to make sure that I have my little guy, my little fuzzy little guy here. I don't want him to get stuck in the seam here. So, okay, so I think I'm going to put these so that my leaves are going upward on both sides. I don't know why, it just seems like my little leaves should be growing up. So that's the way I'm going to put them. So we'll pin the ends. I always pin the ends first so that we know we have it properly cut. And so like I said, these would have been cut 16 and a half inches if you cut them. But when the thing is, when they get quilted, they do, shrink up just a little. And so that's why I like to just do the whole strip together, and then I cut it when I'm done, so that I can trim my borders and my flanges to cut or to fit my center. Because sometimes, if you take the full 1/4 inch, if you did cut yours in advance, and if you took your full 1/4 inch when you were sewing it together, normally they come out okay. Because I remember when we did our event, and all of the kits were cut to the exact amount of, the exact size. I didn't have any trouble with mine, but I had a couple students that did, because they weren't taking a full 1/4 inch seam, and I took a full 1/4 inch, and then mine fit, but they were no more than long enough. So I would tell you if you do it this way, then you can trim them to the size you want, and then they're going to fit. So we'll do both sides here. So I think I want, like I said, I think I want my flowers, my leaves growing up. So there we go. Get these turned over here. So I'll do the ends like this. So I like to pin each end first so that we know we measured correctly. Looks like I did pretty well. And then I kind of like to go, kind of in the middle where, so I'm going to, on this one, I'm going like where those seams are, so I can kind of pin the seams down, keep them flat so that they won't roll over on me. And again, I am going to open these seams flat. It does say in the instructions to turn them to one side, but they're so bulky, I just don't like that. So I always open all of the seams up. Basically anytime I use shape flex on the back, and this one, of course, we have batting also. So I generally lay everything flat, and it lays better when I go to put it together. So, all right, so we'll get these, and now we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam. Hopefully I have enough bobbin thread for this one. I think I do. All right, so let's see here. So we're going to get this tied off, and definitely with borders, I like to tie off so that my borders are nice and strong on the edges. Okay, a second here. Go up this side. Make sure I'm nice and even on the edges. And then I'm going to go right up to that pin. I'll pull it here once I get everything kind of laid out here. There we go. And that's why I like these flat ones, because you can kind of go in and grab them, and you can leave them in a little longer because they're flat, and then it's easy to grab a hold of them. They have like little ridges on there, so they're a little easier to get. Okay, get this lined up. And just kind of pull them back, so they work pretty well. I wasn't sure what I thought of them at first, and then I started using them like, wow, those are cool. Okay, get this all evened up. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm okay up here. Couldn't quite get that one. All right, so we'll go up here and we will tie off at the top. Okay. Do the other side. Oops, I'm gonna have my flanges go on the floor here before too long. I'm running out of pieces. That's always a good sign, right? Because it's going together then. So I'm running out of pieces. And the cat was very happy because she got her little ironing pad back. She's over here napping. She gets very upset if I lay a bunch of stuff on that, and then she can't lay in the middle of the mat. She will lay like with some fabrics on it, but she doesn't like if I have anything laying there. And I so often have something on the side of my machine over here. Now I did take my embroidery unit off. I don't know if you noticed. I did take my embroidery unit off tonight. I don't always but this one's a little easier because it's a little bit big and it's a little stiff. So it's easier to take the embroidery unit off. So there's also a little more room over here for someone to sit when I take the embroidery unit off. All right, so we're getting this one. Just take your time, get your seam allowance accurately in there. All right, so then we're going to go up here and we're going to tie off at the end. All right, so we got our 2 side borders on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and press these open. So again, in the instructions, I'm pretty sure that's what it said. It says to turn them to the side, but I'm going to open these up because these really do lay better if you open them up. So I'm going to open all mine up. Okay, so I'm going to go press this open on the sides, and then we'll do the top and the bottom. So those are going to be approximately 18.5, I believe. Yes, so those are approximately 18.5, but mine may be just, so we'll measure again, but mine may be just a little bit shorter. So, all right, I'll be right back after I press my seams open. Okay, so there's my little borders, and I'm going to measure then across this way, so we'll see how close to 18.5 they are. So we're going to kind of move in a little bit from the edge, and I have to be a little careful because of these mushrooms, so maybe I'll go up to where these seams are. There we go. So they're 18. They're about 18. These are only about 18. Looks like it's about 18 1/4. I have a tendency to take a little bit deeper seams, and it's okay if they're a little bit smaller. It's just absolutely fine. But I am pretty consistent, and they're 18 1/4, I think, so I'll check the edges too. So I like to check it in the middle normally. This is how you would put borders on a regular quilt too. And yeah, so mine are only about 18 1/4. I'm usually anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch short, and that's okay. But see, these have also been quilted. And so like these little blocks in here may be just slightly smaller too, because, you know, they were cut to the exact size they needed to be, and then they were quilted. So, you know, it will pull it in a little bit. So, all right, so I think I'm going to cut these 18 1/4 instead of 18 1/2. So I think 18 1/4 should be good. Okay, so I'll go cut these, and I'm going to cut one out of each one of my blue borders at 18 1/4, and then we're going to put the top and the bottom on, and before we do the flanges. Okay, so I've got my 18 1/4 inch strips cut, and I think so I have both of my sides going the same direction, but I think I'm going to alternate the top and the bottom. So this one I've got the leaves pointing this way, and I think this one down here I already pinned the top one on. I think I'm going to put these this way so that they're going opposite directions. I don't think it really matters, but I think I'll go rogue and have them going in opposite directions. Most people would probably never notice. And I remember when I did Let Me Call You Tweedheart, I was trying to decide if I was going to put the lettering right side up or upside down so that it was all like going the same direction. But I think I ended up putting it right side up on the bottom so that they were all, you could read it. So just, I think we'll try these in opposite directions this time. See what that looks like. I think it will look fine. So our leaves are going in opposite directions on the top and the bottom. I don't think you'll see it very much because it's pretty light green. The green is, you know, you see the green on the blue, but it's very subtle, so you don't really, it's not really glaring at it or anything. Now I make sure that your tape stayed on for your little caterpillar over here so you don't catch him in your seam. So I retaped him while I was over there to make sure. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and do these. Hopefully I might have enough bobbin thread at least to get me through one of these. Let's see here. Having trouble getting lined up here at the end. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing with the outside flanges. We're just going to cut them to the size we need. And then we'll measure and cut and then sew them on just like we did these. So that's where my little caterpillar is. So hopefully I didn't catch him in my seam. Yep, can't get a hold of that one. Yeah, those flat ones are a lot easier to get a hold of when you're trying to pull them out. Still doing my 1/4 inch seam with the J foot and the piecing stitch. So it's Q02 on the machine. And I've also noticed that when I trim with the orange pop rulers, all of the blocks turn out just a hairish smaller than the measurement. So I think that's partially why everything turns out just a little bit smaller for me, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's still, everything fits fine and the pillow fits fine. Usually when I get to the end though, when we put the backing on, I will have to trim my backing off just a little bit because it's going to be a little too long probably. So we'll just trim it off and it will be fine. Okay, so there's that one, and we're going to turn it over and do the other one. Let me get these pins out of the way. Do this one. I think I'm going to like them going the opposite directions. And I suppose we could have gone like this so that it would have gone around in a circle. That would have been another option. So whatever you want to do with it. I don't think there's a wrong or right way. They didn't really say anything in the instructions. To the top and the bottom. No, they didn't really say anything in the instructions about it, so I don't think there was anything. Let me look on the last page, see if they said anything on that page. Sometimes the quilting stuff will have a little bit of information. I don't think they really had. You can't see it either. You can't see pictures either, so I don't know that there's really any information really in here about that. So whatever you like to do. I know I'm going to put the other borders so that they're like the other borders are pointing outward. So I might even put the, you know, the bottom one upside down so that it's pointing the same direction all the way around. So I don't think it matters. But these are going opposite directions, except the sides, they're going up and down. All right. Get these lined up. Get everything lined up. And the reason I like to trim my borders is that then they're all the same length. So you know your pillow is going to be square when you're done because you've got your borders, you know, your borders and your flanges are cut the same size and you've measured, and then they're all going to be nice and square. So that's why, whoops, I can hear this is making sure this is not turning over on me. Okay. And then you know everything's going to be nice and square, even though it may not be the exact size it says in the instructions. All right. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so pretty. Really like this. All right, so I'm going to go press these out too. It says to press these like, you know, inward or something again, and I'm pressing them open. So I got the top one going to the right, and I've got the bottom one going to the left. So I think that's going to look nice. Oh, good, and I didn't catch my little guy. He's still poofy, so I think we can probably untape him now. So our little caterpillar guy here. I think I did catch a couple little stitches with the tape though, but there he is. So he didn't get caught in the seam. There's our little caterpillar, isn't he cute? So I'm going to go press these open, and then I'll be back and we'll start working on the flanges. Okay, so there's the whole, all the, pull this back a little bit so you can see, but there's the first border, and now we're going to put the flanges on. Isn't that pretty? I just really like it. I was anxious to do this one because it's so springy and fun. Okay, so now we're going to start doing the flanges, which are the wider pieces, and we're going to do the side ones first. So we're going to measure this way so we know how big they need to be, and we'll cut them the same size. So let's see here. These are going to be now Gigi wants my tape measure. So these are 18 and a quarter. I'm usually about 1/4 of an inch off. So 18 and a quarter. Let's measure down this way a little bit. Oh, yep, we're going to try to play with the tape measure over here. 18, well, it's actually closer to 18 and 3/8 maybe. So let's measure in the center. I try to kind of center toward, you know, work towards the center. 18 and a quarter. I think I'm getting more 18 and a quarters than I am 18 and 3/8. So we'll try 18 and a quarter because that makes sense because mine are usually about 1/4 of an inch off. So we'll do 18 and a quarter. So I have to cut 2 18 and a quarters for my borders. Now remember, these are the important ones. You need to do 1 18 and a quarter inch or 18 and a half, whichever you're doing, out of one of these, and then the other, and then out of each one, and then the other one will be long enough for your, say, roughly 22 and a half inch one. So cut one short one and one long one out of each one. Okay, so that's important so that you don't run out of fabric. So I'm going to go do my 18. We decided 18 and a quarter, right? So I better measure again. It's always good to measure an extra time just to make sure. So that one's actually, yeah, I think 18 and a quarter will be fine. Most of mine are measuring, and there's just one that was measuring a little bigger. So I think 18 and a quarter will be good. So I'm going to go ahead and measure my 18 and a quarter inch borders and our flanges, and we're going to put these on the left and the right side. Okay, so I cut my strips at 18 and a quarter. Now remember, if my measurements may not be your measurements, so make sure you're measuring before you do yours. And I wanted my borders so that the birdhouses were going towards the outside. So like, you know, the tops of the border was going to the outside. So that's how I've got them sewn on, and these are got them pinned on. And now we're going to sew these on these are the right and left edges. So what I'm contemplating is if I'm going to put the bottom one on upside down or if I'm going to put it on right side up. So people always, I think the last one I did right side up just because I wanted them to be seen. So it may actually be the opposite of the other one. So I don't know that it really matters, but I think it just depends on what you want to do. All right, so a second here. I'll put this just a little bit closer so I can get my arm over here better. Get these sewn on. I'm still doing my 1/4 inch seam. And we're going to open the seams up. I think it might say to do the side, press them to the side again. And I think press the seams toward the flange. So I open mine up. So mine are all of my seams are open. Because otherwise I just get so much bulk, especially with that batting in there. And I even have started to open all my seams up if I'm not doing the batting. I open the seams up if I use Shape Flex because it's quite stiff, and if you lay the seams flat, it's so much easier to get everything to lay nice. So I usually lay mine open, press mine open. All right, so we're going to go down here and we're going to tie up at the end. Okay, and then we're going to turn around and do the other side. Whoops, got one more pin. I certainly would stab myself with that, so hopefully I didn't lose any of my little leaves over here. The cat's been helping me, so she likes to play with things. All right, so now we're going to sew this one on, and then we're getting ready for the last one. So of course we're getting so close, everybody. These are so fun, and then we'll put the little, there's not much for embellishments, it's just our little leaves that we made. So we're going to put those leaves on, the little flowers. I'll probably just glue them on with the hot glue gun. So fun. I love putting these together. They just, all of a sudden, they just take life. And when I saw this one, I thought, oh my gosh, that's just so springy and pretty. And I was ready for a little, sunshine and yellow and spring colors. So when I saw this, I just had to do it. I was trying to get it done a little sooner than I am. I didn't get it quite done before the first day of spring. I had to stop and do my taxes, though. Sometimes you just have to do that kind of stuff. So I had to take that week and do my taxes. I would have had it done a week earlier if I had gotten my taxes done faster. Okay, so those are sewn on, and I'm going to press these open. And again, when I did these, I made them so that the tops of the, the top of the border, like the birdhouses, were facing outward. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to put it on upside down on the bottom, or if I'm just going to keep going with the outside. So I might do it that way. I'm not sure. We'll see when I get there. I'm going to go press these open, and then I'll make that decision when I start pinning them on the next time. Okay, so I've got the side borders or the side flanges on. Oh my gosh, these are so pretty. I just love the yellow. And I'm so glad that I went ahead and tried out another color. Isn't that cool? All right, so now I'm kind of sitting here looking at this, and I'm seeing that the border, I don't know if you can see it very well on the camera, but there's like a line that runs along the whole thing that connects all of these pieces together. So I'm kind of thinking that the bottom one's going to be upside down because I want it to be, I think it might look funny if I turn it the other way, because then this line would not be along the same inside border. So I think I'm going to put it, it's going to end up being upside down, but that's okay because it'll still look nice. Okay. Just because of that. Whoops, looks like I've got a tail here, so we'll get that out of there. Okay. I just love the little caterpillar. Isn't he cute? And I even managed not to get him caught in the seam. Okay, so now we need to measure this one. And let's see here. So this one's supposed to be, oops, I lost my book almost. It's supposed to be 22.5, but I know mine's not going to be quite that wide. So we're going to measure from the edge to edge here. And mine's only about, yeah, it's about 22 there. Let's measure the center here. Again, when you do these borders and stuff, they come in a little bit when you quilt them. And so some of these things were quilted, and the width, it also, comes in a little bit. So mine's really only about 22, measuring about 22 inches most of the places. So let's see. Yeah, it's just a smidgen over 22 maybe. Maybe 22. Let's measure this one. See, most all of mine is measuring 22. So I'm just going to cut mine 22. I think it'll be fine. And yeah, they're a little short, but that's okay. The pillow is still going to be perfectly fine. Yeah, this one's like about 1/8 of an inch bigger here, and this one is maybe about 1/8. So I might do them 22 and 1/8 just because. So I think maybe it's very close though. So I might cut them 22 and 1/8. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go cut mine, to cut the top and the bottom flange, and then we're going to put those on, and we're going to be able to put this together. So I'm so excited. This is just adorable. I love the colors. It's so soft and spring-like, and I just needed some yellow. Yellow is a very happy color, so I picked yellow for the front and the borders and like the flanges and the backing. I just love yellow, and it's very happy. So I will be right back after I cut my last two flanges. Okay, so I have my last two flanges pinned on. Now I did decide to put them, so that all of the tops of the birdhouses are pointing outward, even on the bottom, just because of this line that goes along the bottom of this. I thought it might look funny if I turned the bottom flange over, that you wouldn't see that line then. So I went ahead and put it, so the one on the bottom is going to look like it's upside down, and but when you're looking at it, still, I don't think you're going to notice it. But I was worried about that line that was running along the bottom of the entire pattern, that it wouldn't be there and it would look funny. So anyway, that's the way I did mine. You can certainly turn it over and do it the other way. And so we're ready to sew the last two on. I'm so excited. This is going to look so cute. All right, so let's get the 1/4 inch seam going here. We're going to go ahead and tie this off. I also had to fill my bobbin before I started these because I was just about out of bobbin thread. Got that done, so we wouldn't run out of bobbin thread in the middle of this. All right, pull these out of here. Oops. But I have to really be careful. I keep I keep poking the ends of my fingers with these. They're so sharp. These are new, so I just got these pins like last week, I think it was. 2 weeks ago, I think. And they're so sharp. I needed some new pins anyway. All right, so we're going to pull this one. It's always so exciting when you get it all put together. It's amazing how they just all of a sudden they just come together, and they're so beautiful. The colors in this one were just, they just really spoke to me. I like happy colors. So happy colors are always good, right? And I love blue and yellow together. That's one of the things I love, and I've always loved yellow. And in fact, I think I need to paint my living room so bad, and I think I'm going to paint it some sort of a yellow because I just love yellow. My bedroom was always yellow at my parents' home, and so I just really love yellow. So that may be, so when I saw this, I thought, oh, I just have to make this pillow because it's yellow. Okay, so we're going to do this side, and then we're going to be putting the back on. So I am going to measure this after I get it, I'm going to measure it right after I press it open, because I probably will need to change the size of my backs just a little bit. I imagine they're going to be just a little, need to be cut off just a little bit. So maybe 1/4 or 1/2 inch. So, because I think you cut them at 22 and 1/2, and I think mine will probably be just a little bit smaller than that. Yep, get this out of my way. I've actually sewn through the heads of those pins. I love these pins because they also, like if you hit them with an iron, they don't melt. But I have sewn through them also. Whoops. Didn't break my machine. That was good. So I have gone right through the pin heads before. These flat ones are easier to go through than the round ones are. All right, so we're just about done. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so pretty. I just love the yellow. All right, tie this one off, and then I'm going to press this. And what I'll do then, while I'm over there pressing this, I'm going to measure to see how long it is. So when I go to put my back on, so I like to put, I was going to look at the picture. I'm pretty sure I always put my back on the opposite way that they say in the instructions. And I've always just done it that way. So like in the instructions, they say to put the back, like the opening horizontally, but I always, for some reason, put mine vertically. So it doesn't matter. So you just need to make sure that your back pieces are the right length for whichever way your opening is going to be. So like I like my opening to be up and down, and so I'm going to measure mine this way from the top to the bottom, and then I'm going to, I may have to cut it off just a little bit to make it the right size. So I'll let you know. I'm going to measure it here in a minute, and I'll let you know when I come back. But we're ready to put the back on. Woohoo! All right, so I'll go press, and then I will measure to see what my backing needs to be. Okay, so I've got my flanges all flat, and oh my gosh, I am just really loving this. So I measured mine, and like I said, I like to put my opening up and down, and in the instructions they do it horizontally, but that is absolutely fine. And what we're going to do then is we're going to put the right sides together here. I did have to trim my backs down to 22, so mine is 22 inches square instead of 22 and a half. But just measure your own. Like I said, I take a full 1/4 inch, and sometimes mine turns out just a little smaller, but you know what? That's absolutely fine. It's going to be perfectly fine size-wise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my borders, or my backs on. I've got the top right side up, and I'm going to put these right sides together, and then these are going to overlap maybe about four inches or so. And then I'm going to put the raw edges together, on the outside edges here, and I'm going to pin all the way around this. And so I'll probably just pause the camera while I do the pinning because it'll take me a minute. And then I want to make sure that I put a pin like where this overlap is, so I know where it is on both sides. And then we're going to sew all the way around the outside edge with a 1/4 inch seam. And then we will be ready to do the final stitching in the ditch to make the flange. So give me just a moment. I'm going to do the pinning so you don't have to sit here and watch me pin it might take me a little bit. So, and then remember, when you do these, raw edges together, the press seams, I'm sorry, the hemmed seams that I already made are going to be on the inside. So there's one here and there's one here. Okay. So if you give me just a moment, I will be back, and after I do the pinning. Okay, so I've got my backs pinned on, and my raw edges are out here, and of course, the hemmed parts are on the inside. They overlap maybe 3 to 4 inches, and then I'm going to sew all the way around the whole perimeter of the pillow with my 1/4 inch seam. And so I did put, and this is the top of the pillow right here. So I did put my seam vertically instead of horizontally like they have it in the instructions. So whichever works for you. I've always done mine vertically, so that's why I went ahead and did mine this way. Now the one thing I do like to do is wear these, and it doesn't matter quite as much here. I like to start where the overlap is, and since there's going to be a flange in here, I don't have to worry about this. When I do the regular pillows, I like to back stitch over this area so that I won't have a ripped seam. But this one, we don't need to do that. So we're just going to tie off here at the beginning. But I like to kind of start where the overlap is so I know exactly where that is. And we'll start that. And we're just going to do our 1/4 inch seam all the way around here. And I did trim my backs off to the about, I think mine ended up being 22 inches. So just measure your pillow so you have your backs at the right size. So a second here, I need to move my kitty's mat because it kind of keeps my pillow from moving here. There we go. It kind of catches everything because it's wool, one of those wool pressing mats, and she loves it though, and I leave it there. And I do press a little bit on it. So, all right, so we're going to go to the corner. I'm going to back up one stitch because I think I got one stitch a little close. Turn the corner here, and we're just going to sew all the way around the whole back. With these envelope backs, you know, we don't have to worry about, you don't have to turn anything or anything, so they go in through that little envelope back. I love envelope back pillows because they're so much easier to get everything in. So we're just going to sew this on. And then the next step, when we do the next step, you want to make sure after I get this all the way around, I'll show you how I need to press this really with a real nice crisp press on the edges, because you want that flange to look beautiful on the edge. I had a little slip with my rotary cutter there. That's why the edge of my fabric looked a little funny. Okay, so we'll get turned around here a second. Let me grab my pins here with my pin cushion. Go around the corner here. Oh, I always have to have at least one little wrinkle in everything I do, but I think it'll be okay. All right, so around this side. To our 1/4 inch seam. Okay. So as you can see, I'm not doing the little back stitching over the little overlaps, because we're going to be having the flange in there, and so that will hold everything from ripping. So I'll show you how I'll do the flange part. I used to, when I first started doing these pillows with the flanges, I really had trouble with my flanges ripping, and so I'll show you how I figured out a way to take care of that. So, but I love flange pillows, and they do quite a few flange pillows actually. A lot of the little bench buddies that we did last year were, whoops, I think I went one stitch over there. A lot of the little bench buddies that we did last year were flanges too, so they turn out so cute. All right, this is a really big flange pillow. I don't know how I got really crooked here. There we go. I had a little slip with my rotary cutter on the one end of my backing, and I was like, whoops, but it looks okay. I figured I could adjust it in the seam a little bit. I'm not very good with a rotary cutter. Just about all the way around. Lay it down a little bit better. This is always so exciting to get to this part, getting the back put on. It's turning out really pretty. I just love the yellow. It's just so happy. Get the corner here. Turn around the last corner. All right. Get to where we started. All right. So I'm going to tie this off here where we started. Now, when I go to, I'm going to take this over to the ironing table, and I'm going to press this. So I wanted to show you what I do. I like to turn this right side out, and these are going to be, so I often do my grandma's little trick for the corners. So let me grab my little Floriani turning tool, and I'm going to turn these corners in. So I'm going to bring it down to the seam allowance, I'm going to hold that corner, and then I'm going to flip this so that those corners are nice and pointy, because this is going to be the flange. So I'm going to bring this down to the seam allowance. This is my grandma's little trick. And you notice I did not trim. Don't trim your corners, because if you trim the corners, I can guarantee you, you're going to poke your little turning tool right through them. So I'm going to take my turning tool and just give it a little bit of a poke just to finish making it nice and straight there. Do this one. Okay. Turn it on this side. Do the same thing. I'm putting my first finger up into the corner. A lot of you have seen me do this lots of times. So I'm going to put my first finger up into the corner. I'm going to pull it down, the seam allowance down to the stitching line, and push it into the stitching line and make the corner. Grab it with your finger and your thumb and push it through so that it's perfectly flat. And so Grandma taught me to do this so that I wouldn't go through my corners. So bring it down, push it in like that, and hold it and flip it out. My grandma was a really smart lady. She did all kinds of sewing things. I mean, she was just sewing. She sewed all the time. She sewed till she was about 90, and then it was hard for her to see to sew. So I did some of her sewing then after that. So after I get this turned right side out, I've got it turned right side out. So I'm going to go, and this really helps. So what I kind of do is I pull this back a little bit where the seam is, and I'm going to kind of finger press this edge in, where the edge of the back of the pillow and the border, the flange meet. I'm going to kind of put a little crease in there, and then I'm going to take this over to my ironing board, and I'm going to really press this down so that this is nice and smooth on this edge, because that way it's going to lay nice and flat, and the flange is going to look beautiful. So normally when I do these flange pillows, I like to do, matching fabric on the back with the flange, because that way the seam, and I'm going to press the seam so it's like this, but I'm just pressing it down so I give it a good press, and I want it to the edge of the seam to be right on the edge, but I'm just doing this all the way around the edges just to give it a little bit of a start, so that when I go to press it at the ironing board, it's going to be nice and flat. And I like to do these with matching fabric, the back and the flange, because then, so if you don't get this perfect, it isn't noticeable. So most of these pillows, I've noticed that that's how they do them, is with matching fabrics on the flange and the backing. Okay, so I'm going to go press this now, and then we'll be ready to do the last step, which is going to be doing the putting in the flange. So what we'll do is I'm going to get this all pressed just like this, so that the seam's right along the edge, and by finger pressing it, it got it started for me. Then I'm going to pin all along the flange, and we're going to stitch in the ditch in this little between the top of the inner border and the bottom of the flange, and make that into a we're going to stitch in the ditch there, and then that's going to be, the pillow is going to fit in this section, and then this will be the little flange. Okay, so I have to go press first, and then we'll come back and we'll work on the flange. Okay, so I got this all pressed, and you want that seam line right along the edge. And what I did is I laid this flat on my cutting table over there, and you can see that I pinned all the way around, and I kind of kept the pins in the middle, because we're going to be stitching in this ditch right here, and I didn't want to catch a pin. The one place you want to make sure you put a pin for sure is where that opening is, where the overlap is back here. Because I always, when I'm stitching in the ditch, sometimes this wants to flip over on me, so I always pin it down. So there's one there, and I put one right up here, so where those openings are, so that I won't flip those little seams over. Okay, so we're going to start like right there, so we know where it's at. And what we're going to do to stitch in the ditch, this is going to be a little different than the instructions, because the instructions tells you the flange is created by sewing through all layers of the pillow, including the back, stitch in the ditch on the seam line between the border and the flange. So in other words, between the blue border and the flange. But what I was always, and like I said, they always tell you when you turn it right side out, we just did Grandma's trick, so we don't trim the corners, because if you do, you're going to go right through the corners. So I used my Grandma's little trick. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch in the ditch. But what I found that happened to me with this is that when I would put the pillow in, like where those little openings were, I was always ripping my pillow. And so I thought, well, how can I do this so that it works better? So what works for me is I use a triple stitch. So it's basically a stretch stitch. So we're going to go back to the first tab, was tab 1, and then we're going to use number 105, which is the triple stitch. Now the length I like to use at 3, and then I use the left right shift to 3.5, and what that means is I set my left right shift to 3.5, or if your width works, like on this stitch on my machine, the width is blacked out, but the left right shift, 3.5 means that's the center needle position. Okay, so this is a 7mm machine on my Luminaire, and then the left right shift at 3.5 is in the center. Some of them, the widths will work here, and some of the machines you have to use left right shift. So we're going to use the length at 3.0, which is a little bit longer than the normal, and then the left right shift at 3.5. Okay, so what we're going to do, and I'm going to leave my white thread in here, and I'm going to start about where that pin is that's showing me where that little overlap is, because I want to make sure I don't get that turned over. And give me just a second. I'm going to put my glasses on too, because I think the white thread will probably be the best because it's pretty light colored. And I'm going to drop my needle. I'm going to tie off. Okay, and when we're doing the triple stitch, it's going to go back and forth. But see, it's going to give that more strength in that. It's going to give it more strength in that seam, so that when I go to do, take my pillow in and out, I'm not going to be ripping it, because I was always ripping these open when I just used a plain straight stitch. But I found that if I used a triple stitch, it really, really helped. But I wanted to show you a trick when I get to the corners here. So we're going to go up to the corner. I'm trying to stay right in the ditch. Okay, I'm going to go right up to the corner. So I'm going to drop my needle in the corner. So I don't remember if it was going forward or backwards at this time. So when I turn the corner, I want to make sure that I'm going forward out of the corner, not back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach back over here to my stitch, and I'm going to touch it one more time. And now I know I've gone back to the beginning of the stitch, and it will go forward out of the corner, because so I do that when I get to each corner to make sure that I don't go backwards. So it's going to go forwards out of the corner, see? And that's important when the corners, I don't want to show that white thread, like up on my border or something. So we're just going back and forth. But this gives it a really nice, strong seam for the flanges, to make the flange here. I'm trying to be very careful so I don't miss. The white thread seems to work pretty well with this. These are both pretty light colors, so I think the white. And sometimes I even use like a monofilament if my fabric is hard, like if the two colors are very different. Sometimes I use monofilament to do this, but like this one, I think the white's looking fine because it's so light colored. All right, so we're going to get close to that corner again. We're going to do the same thing. So once I get to the corner, we'll let it go into the corner, and when we turn, we want to make sure we're coming out of the corner and not going backwards. So I had to learn that little trick once I got started using this triple stitch, because it goes back and forth, All right, so we're going up to the corner. I'm going to get into the corner. Okay, so it's in the corner. Now I'm going to reach over here. I'm going to touch my button, my 105, and because I already had it saved in my machine at this setting, I save it. So like if you set it to 3 and 3.5 left right shift, you can hit it in the memory and it'll always come up that way then. And then every time you touch this, see, it doesn't change anything. It stays the same. So I saved mine in the memory of my machine. Most of the embroidery machines have that feature, so that's really nice. All right. And again, I'm sewing on a Brother Luminaire. You know, all the Brother and Baby Lock machines will have that same kind of feature. And you notice that it went out of the corner, so I have to remember where I started up here. Okay. I always have to pay attention to where I started. But I found that pinning, okay, so this other little piece is coming up. This is the other little place where it's overlapping, so I pinned it so that I wouldn't flip it over and make it look funny on the back. So hopefully it'll stay for me. We'll go over it slowly. Okay. Get it lined up again. Hopefully the camera's not bouncing too badly. It bounces a lot when the machine goes back and forth. I'm getting close to another corner. Yeah, this was a little trick I found when I was working with this, because it's like, how do you know if it's going backwards or forward when you get to the corner? You don't want it to go back into your border, especially if your thread doesn't match, you know. Okay, very well. You want to make sure you don't show that in the corner. Okay, so then I'm back to the corner. I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to touch this. Okay, remember I saved these settings in my memory. I hit the memory, and so when I brought it back up again, see, they were the same. Okay, so and when I touch it again, it's like I'm coming back to that stitch for the first time, and they're still the same. So do that with your stitch. I do that with lots of stitches because I use the same, settings lots of times. And then it's going to go forward. Yay! Whoops, there we go. Must have been a little bump there. But this really helps with the strength of the opening in the back, because I just really struggled with my pillows ripping really badly. Hopefully this is not bouncing too bad for you. And once I learned this trick with the triple stitch, it just really helps. It's maybe a little harder to do in the ditch because you have to watch closer because it goes back and forth, but boy, does it make it stronger. But just try to use a thread that, is pretty matchy so that you won't really see it. And then this one, both pieces were pretty light, so I thought the white would be fine. I just used white for this whole pillow, putting all of it together. All right, so we're getting close to that corner again. So I'm watching my corner here in a second. It's kind of a thick spot right there. There was a couple of seams, so we're going to go into the corner. There we go. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to reach over here, touch my 105, and since I had saved this, everything stayed the same. So make sure you save it before you start. And then I'm going to go, and we started like right here, so I can see where I started here. So, oops, right here, I don't think you can quite see. Turn the camera just a little bit. Ouch. I just got myself with a pin again. They are sharp. Okay, so I'm going up to just right up here, so where this other pin is straight up and down. That's where that little overlap was. So hopefully my overlaps didn't turn over. Very close. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so cute. I can't wait to put the little leaves on it. So we didn't have to put too many. Okay, I'm just about there, so I'm going to go right to where I started. Okay, and then I'm going to tie off. And we're around. The flanges are done. Woohoo! Look at there. I might have to go grab my pin cushion though. Where did I put my pin cushion? That's way over there, of course. Okay, so we're going to take all these pins out. I'll just lay them up here for right now. Take all the pins out, and let's make sure that none of our, oh yay, it didn't turn over. This is where I always worry that this little thing will turn over on me. So hopefully the other side didn't either. Oh, good. So yeah, so we're good back here, you can see. But you can see where the flange is all the way around where we stitched in the ditch. So let's get these pins out of here. Awesome. And now we're going to put the pillow form in. How exciting. So get all these pins out of here. And then I like to put the pillow form in before I put like the stuff on the front, because sometimes, you know, things move a little bit once you put that pillow form in. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pillow form in, and then we'll put the little leaves on, because that's the only thing we had to do. It says to hand tack the dimensional leaf 1 to piece rows 1 and remove the tape from the caterpillar fringe. Well, I'm not going to be doing hand stitching. We are going to do a little hot glue, okay guys, because I don't like to hand stitch. So we'll do the hot glue. Oops, keep hitting the camera. When I'm sewing, it's harder for me to keep from hitting the camera because I've got my hands in here. Looks like I've got a friend again. All right, I think, did I get all the pins? Oh, look at there, isn't it pretty? So let me, I'm just going to pause the camera for a minute while I put the pillow form in so we can see it all done, and then we're going to put our little leaves on our little flowers right here, okay? Because there's a little leaf for each one of these little flowers. So I'll be right back. I'm going to put the pillow form in, and then we're going to put our little leaves on. I've got my glue gun going over here, ready for the leaves. Okay, so I've got the pillow form in. Now I'm just kind of looking at the picture on the front cover, and it looks like they have like one like the little leafy bow thing over here on this one. So this one's kind of like over on the side over here. So I'm just going to put some hot glue on the back of it, and we'll just push it down on there, like right in here. They kind of had it like that. Just kind of push it down on there. So these are not, they're just kind of, these are the only, embellishments. And now this one they kind of put over here and kind of put the leaves kind of upward a little bit. So we'll do that. I think we're going to have a little cat that's going to come help me here. She likes the glue gun for some reason. I haven't figured out why. So we're going to put this one here, kind of like that. And then this one, they had kind of down like this. So they kind of had them different directions. So we'll just put this one on. Okay, like that. I think, oh my gosh, those are so cute. Kind of different directions. And then they had these pointed different directions. So I am liking this pillow. Oh my gosh, look at there. Okay, so I'm gonna try to tip this up so you can see the whole thing, and you probably will also see Gigi because she has to get into the video, And all right, so Gigi, can you get down so I can do this? Thank you. She's kind of in the way of the pillow here, so we're gonna tip this up so you can see it. I'm going to pull this back. Oh my gosh, look at there, guys. Isn't that beautiful? It's so happy. I just love it. And I love the border. I'm so glad I did the border in the blue. I do really love it in the blue. And our little bows. I don't think there was anything else in the book. I think that was the end. I'll look at the last page just to make sure we didn't miss anything. But I think we got everything. And you just put those little embellishments on there. And we are done. We are done with Life is Better in Full Bloom. I'm just so happy. Isn't that darling? I just love the colors. They're just so happy and springy looking, aren't they? So thank you so much for joining me for Life is Better in Full Bloom. We did it.